Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here, and today we're going to take a look at the best GABRIEL replacements, or in other words, the best defenders to buy now in Game Week 4. So hopefully you find this video useful, and if you do, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So just to give some context to this graphic here, it is ordered from the best buy to the optional options at the bottom there, in my opinion. So basically, these players are ranked based on how I think you should shop for these players, and basically the priority that you should place on all these players when replacing or just going into the market for a defender. Right, so give some context to the numbers as well before we jump into the players. Expected goals conceded per 90, I think that's straightforward enough. Is basically per 90 how many goals your team is expected to concede for the defender, of course. And then for expected goal involvement per 90, that is a combination of the expected goals as well as expected assist for the player. Fixture difficulty rating is for the next 6 game weeks, because when we are looking to bring in a player, we would want to keep that player for around a 6 game week horizon. And just nice as well, game week 4 to game week 9 is the horizon that we're looking at, because come game week 8, game week 9, that period is when we are likely to wildcard already, because there's a pretty big fixture swing there. So the fixture difficulty rating this week will take into account the fixtures from game week 4 to game week 9. Same goes for the expected points as well, where the projections are for the next 6 game weeks. So there we go with the numbers. So let's take a look at the first option that I have here on the screen, and that is obviously Kieran Trippier. Now for me, Kieran Trippier is the best replacement. Of course, he is slightly more expensive at 6.5. So if you have Gabriel and you're looking to replace him, Gabriel is about 4.9 now. He's dropped about 0.1 mil. He's probably going to drop a little bit more as well, given that he didn't start in game week 3. But if you do have the funds, I think going for Kieran Trippier is probably the best option that you have right now, simply because eventually we will want Kieran Trippier. Come game week 5 onwards, Newcastle's fixtures are really good, right? And there's no harm in bringing him 1 week earlier if you are short on defenders to play, right? Because the template formation now is likely a 3 at the back. So some of you guys, are facing injury problems, etc., and you don't really have at least three defenders to fill. Then replacing Gabriel with Trippier 1 week earlier could help to solve that problem. And aside from that, of course, we know Kieran Trippier is just a solid defensive FPL option, right? In terms of expected goal involvement data, it is still very strong. So it's still the Kieran Trippier that we know from last season. And bearing in mind as well that the first 3 games that he's played against quite tough opposition, which includes Man City and Liverpool, in which yesterday they just conceded 2 goals. But regardless, his expected goal involvement per 90 is still very strong, even against strong opposition. So 0.24 per 90. So his expected goal involvement is still very strong, and defensive data as well from Newcastle is still looking pretty good. I know last night showing against Liverpool, where they conceded 2 goals, does not go to show that they are a very strong defensive side. But if you take a look at all 3 of the fixtures, they've actually managed out of the 3 fixtures to only concede 1.2 expected goals per 90, and this includes opposition like Manchester City as well as Liverpool. So do bear in mind as well. And in terms of a defensive unit, I still back Newcastle as a very strong one, right? And in terms of expected points, you take a look at Kieran Trippier, he's top for expected points across the next 6 game weeks, 27.2 based on the Fantasy Football Hub predictions as well. So I really like Kieran Trippier as an option if you do have some money to go upwards and upgrade Gabriel to Trippier. But aside from that, if you don't have enough money to upgrade to a Kieran Trippier, then I think going for a City defender still makes sense. Now, I do know that they did concede against Sheffield United in a rather cheap goal towards the end, where Kyle Walker just decided to make the game a little bit more exciting and backheel the ball into the Sheffield United attacker. But aside from that, you take a look at the numbers that they are putting up, they are still the best defense in the league, right? 0.4 expected goals conceded per 90 across 3 games, across the first 3 games for Manchester City is just really, really strong, right? So basically, it'll take them about 3 games to concede 1 goal, and that's exactly what we're seeing now in the first 3 gamings as well. The sample size is pretty small, but regardless, they have conceded very few chances as well, right? So they are still a very strong defensive unit, but the thing with Gvardiol, which is the option that I've put here in second place, is that even though he is cheaper than Ruben Diaz, we do have to take into account that he is just going to be a 6-point merchant, right? He's in here because I think he's cheap and he's almost a similar price point to Gabriel, which would be easy for people to reach. But I think in terms of attacking threat, we need to realize that he's not someone that's going to bomb forward and get attacking returns. He's not someone that I think will invert a lot as well, right? So 0.04 expected goal involvement per 90 for Gvardiol, which is not great as well. So you just want him as a 6-point merchant, and that is actually just enough, because you take a look at his expected points is 25.5 for the next 6 as well. So just behind Kieran Trippier, and in general, you are backing kind of the best defense in the league right now, right? So that is somewhere else that I would go if I didn't have enough money to upgrade Gabriel to Kieran Trippier. But let's take a look further down the list, and this is where I think it gets very exciting. Now, there's Udogie, who is currently 6% owned, but I think after his double-digit haul, it's going to just rise a little bit more as well. Do bear in mind as well that even though he did come off with a knock, the Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou has said that he is still fit, right? That was just a slight knock and he's ready to go for next week as well. We'll get more information as Tottenham play in midweek as well, right? But aside from that, even though he's 6% owned, I think he is a real gem, as a lot of us have already picked up by now. He's an incredible attacking threat. You take a look at his data is 0.41 expected goal involvement per 90 for Udogie, and of course fixture difficulty rating over the next 6 is the third in the league, basically, right? So that's great fixtures for Tottenham, but you do have to bear in mind that this fixture difficulty rating is from Game Week 4 to Game Week 9. If you shift it from Game Week 4 to Game Week 7, in Game Week 6 they play Arsenal. In Game Week 7 they play Liverpool. So obviously this would drop Udogie all the way down the fixture difficulty ratings here. So if you are going for Udogie, I think the main reason why is not just because his attacking data is really good, but I think aside from that, he rotates really well. Yes, he does have poor fixtures in Game Week 6 and Game Week 7, but he rotates really well with template picks like Estupinian, who has a tougher run across this couple of game weeks coming up from Game Week 4 to Game Week 9, but Udogie has a good run when Estupinian has tougher fixtures. So that's where you can rotate as well, right? So with Udogie, I think you do have to take note that Tottenham is not a defensive side that is known to keep a lot of clean sheets. So as you can see here, across the 3 game weeks, they've already conceded expected goals conceded per 90 of 1.6. Right, so that is one of the higher, in one of the more higher brackets for all the players here. And as you guys can see, it also indicates that Spurs concede a lot of chances. So in general, I don't think clean sheets would be I think clean sheets will be few and far between for Udogie. It could happen, but I'm not going to bank on their defense. I think in terms of his attacking threat, that's what we're going for with Udogie, right? And that's also kind of factored in, that defensive fallibility of Tottenham is kind of factored into Udogie's expected points as well, where you see it's 18.8, even though his expected goal involvement data is so strong. Right, so the next option that I have is actually Rico Henry. Now, Rico Henry is a really, really good option. I just really like Brentford's defensive numbers. It's so close to Man City's as well. It's 1 expected goals conceded per 90. So that's a really, really small number of chances that they concede to the opposition side. So keeping clean sheets, I think, would not be too much of an issue for Brentford for their next run of 6 fixtures, especially considering that they are actually second on the fixture ticker for the next 6 game weeks. In terms of goal threat as well, his expected goal involvement per 90 is 0.23. So Rico Henry, as we knew from Game Week 1 already, picking up assists here and there, bombing down the wings. He's a great attacking option. 20.9 expected points per 90 for Rico Henry as well. And then next up we have Matty Cash. Now, he's just come off a mega haul against Burnley, and I think in general, when we go back to pre-Matty Cash, his injury that he had last season, before that, right, he was just an incredible defensive asset to own. Those who had him for his mega, I think 29 pointer, if I'm not wrong, that was a really mega haul from Matty Cash during those times, and he is capable of that. Unai Emery did come out and say Cash did play in the right wing for Nottingham Forest last time when he was playing for Nottingham Forest, and basically he knows that he has that in his locker. And in general, when you look at the positions Matty Cash is taking up, it's almost as if he's playing as a right wing. Right, so in general, I just really like him as an option. But the thing about Matty Cash is that currently Aston Villa's fixture difficulty rating is just not great. They are 15th in general for the next 6 game weeks, so it's not looking too good in terms of the fixture difficulty department. And on top of that, they are conceding quite a number of chances, right? 1.9 expected goals conceded per 90 for Aston Villa. I think this one is skewed a little bit because of the thumping by Newcastle. It has improved of late from game week 2 and game week 3 where they started to pick up their performances, but we do have to keep a lookout for that. But in general, because their fixtures are not great, I think Matty Cash would be ranked a little bit lower, and that's why I've kind of put him somewhere in the middle here out of all the options as well. Alright, so next up we have Levi Colwill. Now the thing with Levi Colwill is he is 0.5 million more expensive than Gusto. Malo Gusto, who's at the bottom. I'll touch on him later on, but in general, when you pay this extra 0.5, I think he's less of a problem later on as compared to Malo Gusto, who's going to be a problem when Reece James comes back. Levi Colwill is slightly more nailed, but the thing is, of course, Levi Colwill does not have as great an attacking threat as Malo Gusto, right? And I still feel like in terms of an ideal Chelsea triple up, if you do want to go for a Chelsea triple up, Levi Colwill is not in there. I feel like the ideal Chelsea triple up right now is Ben Chilwell, Raheem Sterling in midfield, and Nicholas Jackson up front. So if you do want to triple up and you don't want in that fashion that I just mentioned, these 3 players that I mentioned, and you don't want to block your options of going to that route, then going for Levi Colwill is kind of not in the options because it just takes up an extra Chelsea slot where you may want to go for an attacker instead, because defensively I think Ben Chilwell is enough actually, right? So that's something to consider as well. But of course, Levi Colwill is a cheaper entry into a Chelsea defense that is a slightly more nailed option, and that's where I think he comes in as a decent pick if you want to replace Gabriel, or if you're looking for defenders in general. Right now, the second last option that I have here is Joachim Andersen. Now, Crystal Palace's defense has actually been one of the better ones, right? 1.2 expected goals conceded per 90 across the first 3 games. They've actually been quite unlucky to keep keep as many clean sheets as they've had, because I think they should have kept a lot more, right? In general, they're not conceding a lot of chances, and I think they're quite a solid defensive unit, right? In terms of the expected goal involvement department for Joachim Andersen is 0.17, so he's actually one of the more attacking defenders for Crystal Palace, especially from from set piece threat, where his goal threat is really high, right? In game week 1, you remember that Eze had a free kick and Andersen was at the end of it. If he put that in, I think his numbers would actually be slightly better as well. But in general, he is one of the more attacking defenders, even though he plays centre back for Crystal Palace, right? But the thing is, they are 8th in terms of fixture difficulty rating. He's about 4.5 right now. And I think in general, he'll just be a good option to have on the bench, but he's not someone that I would go out to buy, and he's not someone that I would say is ranking really high in terms of defenders to buy, right? So that's why he's kind of the second last right now. And then I have Malo Gusto as the last option. Now, the thing with Malo Gusto, right, is that even though he has a great showing against Luton Town, he did really well. He got, I think, a 14-point haul, right? But let's not kid ourselves here. His first assist was pretty lucky, and the 0.31 expected goal involvement per 90 is mostly where he got that assist from Raheem Sterling, where he crossed the ball in and Sterling just put it in first time, right? So that was a great ball. Taking no credit away from him, but in general, I think he is definitely not a Reece James, right? His attacking threat is pretty decent, right? But I think you can't expect to have haul after haul from him, right? And buying him now, I think, would be a little bit too late, simply because Reece James is set to be back around the time of game week 5 or latest game week 6, right? So the actual date given right now, I think, is 17 September, if I'm not wrong. And bear in mind, we do have an international break as well. So if he doesn't come back in game week 5, I think game week 6 is where we see Reece James come back, and that's probably when Malo Gusto would drop to the bench again, right? So the thing with Malo Gusto, where I see some players or some FPL managers still going for Malo Gusto, is simply because they feel like he's just 4 million, you can bench him, and you may not really want a Chelsea triple up at the end, right? So what's the harm in buying a 4.0 million Malo Gusto and just having him for now, and if he doesn't start, drop him to the bench. So that's kind of one way to think about it as well. But at this point in time, I feel like if I'm going to buy a defender, I would much rather go for the options that I've ranked higher than Malo Gusto, instead of just going for him and trying to take advantage of this run that they have, because I do feel like there are other areas where we can match up there as well. So there we go. These are the defenders, or these are the 8 defenders that I think are great to buy right now. And in terms of the order from best buy to optional, I have Trippier, Gvardiol, Udogie, Rico Henry, Matty Cash, Levi Colwill, Joachim Andersen, and then last on the optional area there, it's Malo Gusto. So let me know what you guys think of these replacements, and if you are in the market for a defender, let me know which one of these are you going for. Or if you have someone that I've missed out, drop it in the comments down below. I'll be interested to know. But hopefully this video was useful for you guys. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. And I'll catch you guys in more Game Week 4 content coming thick and fast on the channel very soon. Bye bye.